Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Unit 6 Summary and Synthesis presentation. Today, we will be talking about UX research methods. We will be bringing in ideas from VA Lofthouse and the Liley, as well as the UX Booth website and the nn.group.com website. I first want to start with Lofthouse and Liley. They brought about some very interesting methods for UX research and design and kind of take us through some different points of methods that we can use. One of them that they talked about, which I completely agree with as a very good method for UX research, is focus groups. The key to running a successful focus group is preparation. That means making sure that you are targeting the right demographic for your research, making sure that the length of the focus group won't take up people's time, and making sure that people are fully engaged throughout the group. You're obtaining the most accurate and helpful information. The next one is participant observation, which I think kind of can tie into focus groups. If there's more than one person conducting the study, there can be one person engaging the participants in the focus group. There can be another person who's kind of off to the side and recording everything that is occurring. There's two ways to do participant observations. You can either have a manual observation or video recording. The manual observation is writing down verbatim everything that is going on, and that one is a little bit more difficult because you have to make sure that you're capturing everything. There's also a video recording option where you just record the entire session and then go back and watch what is going on, record certain mannerisms, whatever you notice. However, the downside to that is that on top of conducting the focus group, you also have to spend time looking at the video, which can take hours depending on how long your session was, depending on what people had to say. So it can be very time consuming. The other method that Lofthouse and Liley suggest is user trials. So user trials are often undertaken as part of an initial research to evaluate existing products. So I know even at my job, I work in cosmetic manufacturing, and we do user trials, especially when we're working on a new product. So basically what we would do is the chemist will make a prototype. That prototype is then gone through a various amount of tests, but one of the specific tests is the user trial, where sometimes the chemists even test it on themselves, or we will use employees in our company to test the product. So I remember a few years ago, we were coming out with a shampoo, like a cleansing dry shampoo, and made it in the lab, and they had about probably 10 or 15 people test the product and see if it checkmarked all of the things that the product promised to do. So if the product promised to not interfere with color treated hair, then they would find someone with color treated hair, have them use the product, and see if the product did in fact the color in their hair was not damaged during the use of the product. So that's like a really good way to understand users' honest review of a product and ensure that the product is working the way you want it to. Another option for research methods is product and use method, which records what people actually do, not what they say they do, capturing behaviors which people may not report or be able to articulate when asked, such as habitual behavior. This one is a little bit more abstract in that you're not getting the opinion of the person, but rather recording the action. I think this actually would tie into participant observation, where instead of you listening to what the person is saying, you're watching what they do, which actually can be more beneficial because someone can say that they're a computer savvy and they are so great with technology, but then when you put them in front of a particular product, you actually see where their mishaps are. And that is what you record rather than what they say. But I also feel like it's beneficial to get both ends of the spectrum. So to write down what they're saying, so you get that, okay, they think they're this, then they're that. Perfect. But then put them in front of that new product, watch how they react to it, and you kind of get that the person feels confident with technology, but then when put in front of technology, the confidence is still there, but they may not have the savviness required to use your product, and you can use that to kind of gauge what you want to do with that product, whether you want to make changes to it or whether you just need to put something in your instruction manual that kind of lays out exactly what needs to happen to perform a specific action. The next research method is customer diaries. And that one is a little interesting because you're basically asking the customer, or the user in this case, to record their experiences with the product. And kind of like a time saver in some aspects, because instead of you interviewing the user or having them in a focus group or something like that, you give the user the product, they use it, they record their experience with it, and then you use that data to continue your development of your product. With that, I feel like the downside with that, in my opinion, is that users may not always be honest. Sometimes, especially if there are biases within the study, which, hopefully there aren't, but if there are, there can be some discrepancies with the experience. Maybe the person did have a hard time, but they just didn't write that down, or they don't really describe the issues that they're having. Maybe someone can completely hate the product and then not really describe the issues. And so you get these very vague responses, which aren't very helpful. The next one I would like to talk about is scenario of use, which is actually can be fun depending on the user. So basically with scenario of use, you take your user through various different scenarios where they will have to use a product or, pretend that they're in a situation where the product would be useful and what they would do to make the product effective for them. The downfall of this is that, some users are not actors. Some people can't act. Some people aren't good at pretending or imagining different things and scenarios. You have to really vet who you're bringing into this type of research method, because you don't want to bring someone and, they can't really imagine or put themselves in whatever storyline you're trying to create, because then you won't get accurate data, or you won't get sufficient data. So while this can be very beneficial, I would suggest that people be careful with this one, just because you're not sure what kind of endpoint you're going to receive. Now, going on to the UX Booth website, they created something called the Complete Beginner's Guide to UX Research. And while this site and this particular page did provide some very interesting points, what I really wanted to focus on with their page is the quantitative versus qualitative research, because I think in UX research, these two things do come hand in hand and sometimes can get merged and kind of confusing onto like which is which. So UX Booth, they describe UX research as design research. It serves many purposes throughout the design process. It helps identify, improve, or disprove our assumptions, find commonalities across our target audience members, and recognize their needs, goals, and mental models. They also say that UX research has two parts: gathering data and synthesizing that in order to improve usability. And this is where quantitative and qualitative research comes in. So quantitative research is any research that can be measured numerically. So something like gathering statistical data and measuring that data in some sort of way. It could be, creating charts and graphs to really understand the numbers that you are getting with a particular product, things of that nature. while qualitative research is sometimes called soft research, it answers the questions like, why did something happen? So, for example, if you are gathering research and you're creating a chart of how many people liked a product and how many people didn't like a product, and you find that more people didn't like the product rather than liked the product, from there you would want to understand why. So why did people not like the product? Was it a design issue? Was it a usability issue? Was it some other issue that needs to be evaluated through another type of research method? And that's kind of where they qualitative and quantitative go hand in hand. The NN Group website also talked about attitudinal versus behavioral dimensions, and basically they can be summed up by contrasting what people say versus what people do. As this was also talked about when we were discussing the product and use theory brought to us by Lofthouse and Lilly, they also explained what this is about. It's very interesting because the attitude versus behavior dimension definitely goes hand in hand, and I think is very important to point out when doing focus groups or any type of UX method, because as I said before, the user may believe that they're good at something, but their behavior proves that they're not. And so how do those different personality types within one person contribute to how a product is going to be created or produced? It's very interesting to discuss those two variables. Also coming from the NN Group, they list out 20 UX methods that can be used in your research. The one that I wanted to really highlight here is interviews. So they describe interviews as a one-on-one discussion, an in-depth discussion, and where participants think about a topic in question. I was thinking, what is the difference between an interview and a focus group? Because a focus group is an interview, it's just a group interview where multiple people are given the chance to talk. However, an interview is more in-depth. You get to really pick at that person's mind and understand what that person really feels and thinks. Whereas a focus group, you get multiple opinions, multiple thoughts. So, it's really up to the researcher what they think is more beneficial to them, whether they want to just tap into one person's mindset or if they want to tap into multiple mindsets and really get a wide understanding of their product. I think what all of these sources want us to understand is that when conducting UX research, there are many options, many different ways of going about research. It's really up to the researcher what method they want to choose. In my personal opinion, I think, any of these will be really great. And in one of our previous readings, we also talked about combining methods to create a diverse research method. We're creating a product for the user, but we want to make sure that that product is the best it can be. So if combining methods is what will ensure that the usability of that product is successful, then that is what needs to happen. So I do think that all of these methods are very effective and that many of them can tie into each other to create a very diverse study. Thanks for watching.